Hello guys, in this video we will continue with the topics in surface chemistry. In today's video we will be learning about catalysis, the theory of catalysis, what are promoters and poisons, what is enzyme catalysis and the mechanism behind it, what are shape selective catalysis. You would have come across a lot of chemical reactions. Let me give you an example. When you take hydrogen peroxide, which has the formula of H2O2, it decomposes to give water and oxygen. But this process happens for a month for the entire hydrogen peroxide to decompose to give water and oxygen. But if you add a catalyst, for example, potassium permanganate, the reaction speeds up. So the role played by the catalyst here is to speed up the reaction. We are quite familiar with the role of catalyst in different types of chemical processes. So let's first define what is a catalyst and then we will learn few of the characteristics of a catalyst. A catalyst may be defined as the substance which when present in a chemical reaction accelerates its speed and is recovered unchanged in amount and chemical nature when the reaction is over. So what is the role of a catalyst? It speeds up the chemical reaction which was already slow, and during the process of speeding up the reaction, the catalyst is not undergoing any change in the quantity and also in its chemical nature. As soon as the reaction gets over, the catalyst will come out unchanged. So the chemical reaction in which the catalyst is used is called as catalysis. The process of involving the use of catalyst in a chemical reaction is known as catalysis. So catalyst is a substance that you're adding to speed up the chemical reaction, and the catalysis is the process in which the catalyst is used. And look at this example. Potassium chlorate, 2KClO3 decomposes to give potassium chloride and oxygen. This reaction is a slow reaction and it requires a temperature of 653 to 873 Kelvin. But now you're adding this catalyst, manganese dioxide. When you add this catalyst, the reactions become fast, and look at the temperature needed, 473 to 633 Kelvin. So this is catalysis, and MnO2 is the catalyst used. There are a few important characteristics that you should know about catalysts. A catalyst cannot initiate a chemical reaction. If this reaction is happening already, if you are adding a catalyst, it can speed up the reaction. If there is a reaction which is not going to happen, you cannot use a catalyst to start that reaction. It can just speed up the reaction. A catalyst cannot start a reaction, or it cannot initiate a reaction. In other words, you can say a catalyst can catalyze only the spontaneous reaction which has the delta G value negative. So a catalyst cannot catalyze a non-spontaneous reaction. And the second important characteristic of a catalyst, it's only a small amount of catalyst is sufficient to catalyze a particular reaction. For example, I told you the decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. You can use colloidal platinum as a catalyst also for decomposition of hydrogen peroxide. You should note one thing: for catalyzing 10 power 8 liters of hydrogen peroxide, 10 power 8 liters of hydrogen peroxide, you just need 1 gram of catalyst. So when you're using a catalyst for a reaction, only a small amount of catalyst is sufficient to catalyze a particular reaction. And the third point is a catalyst remains unchanged in amount as well as chemical nature. As I told you in the definition itself, a catalyst will not undergo any change in the quantity and also in its chemical nature while it is catalyzing a chemical reaction. At the end of the reaction, it will come out unchanged. And a catalyst is very specific in nature, which will be we will be learning in detail. And the last point, a catalyst is more effective when it is present in finely divided form. As we have seen already, when the catalyst is present in finely divided form, the surface area will be more. When the surface area will be more, its effectiveness will be more. So a catalyst is more effective when it is present in finely divided form. When we talk about this catalyst and catalysis, some three important terms are there that you should understand and should be able to differentiate. Let's see those terms. The first term is promoter. A promoter is not a catalyst. It is a substance that enhance the activity of a catalyst. Catalyst will be a different substance. This is the third substance, extra substance that you will be adding to the chemical process. This will enhance the activity of a catalyst. For example, if you are taking nitrogen and hydrogen to give you ammonia, we call this process as Haber's process. This is the industrial method of preparing ammonia gas. So for this reaction, you use iron solid as the catalyst. The activity of the iron will be enhanced, its performance will be better if you add this molybdenum. So here this molybdenum is called as the promoter. So promoter is the substance that enhance the activity of a catalyst, but itself is not acting as a catalyst, but it is enhancing the activity of a catalyst. Same way the term poison, it is just opposite of promoter. It is the substance that decrease the activity of a catalyst. For example, the same reaction, Haber's process you can take. Here iron is the catalyst, and I told you molybdenum, it enhances the activity of iron, so it is called as promoter. But when you add H2S gas, it will decrease the activity of the iron. So we call H2S as the poison because it's poisoning the chemical reaction and preventing it to happen by decreasing the activity of a catalyst. So we call this substances as poison. When we defined catalyst, we said it is the substance which when present in a chemical reaction accelerates its speed. So catalyst need not necessarily be added from outside. It can be one of the products. Here one of the products, when it acts as the catalyst, we call that as autocatalyst. For example, if you take this reaction, hydrolysis of ethyl acetate. Here this is ethyl acetate and you are treating it with water to give you acetic acid and ethanol. This reaction is initially slow, but after the formation of acetic acid, the H plus ions from acetic acid will catalyze the reaction and then the reaction speeds up. So one of the products, it is acting as a catalyst. Such catalysts are called as autocatalyst, and this process is known as autocatalysis. I have written one more example. This is oxidation of oxalic acid by acidified potassium permanganate. So this is the formula of oxalic acid, potassium permanganate. This is sulfuric acid. So this is acidified potassium permanganate. So this reaction is also initially slow, but after the formation of this product MnSO4, the Mn2 plus ions formed in the reaction acts as a autocatalyst for the reaction. So after the formation of this Mn2 plus, the reaction speeds up, and this process is called as autocatalysis. Now let's move on to the types of catalysis. There are two types of catalysis: homogeneous catalysis and heterogeneous catalysis. And again, what is catalysis? The chemical process in which a catalyst is used is called as catalysis. So there are two types. The first one is homogeneous catalysis. In homogeneous catalysis, the reaction mixture and the catalyst form a single phase, which means both the reactants and the catalyst will be in the same physical state. Now look at this example. 2SO2 gas plus O2 gas, both are the reactants, and what is the catalyst here? NO gas. So all the three are in the gaseous phase. So the reaction mixture and the catalyst form a single phase. Now look at this example. You have sucrose, hydrolysis of sucrose, and this reaction is catalyzed by H plus ions provided by sulfuric acid. See, all the three are in the same phase. When we say aqueous and liquid, we represent the same state. So all the reaction mixture and the catalyst are in the single phase. Then we call this catalysis as homogeneous catalysis. So Usually, chemical reactions taking place in gases or liquid solutions are mostly homogeneous in nature. And the second type of catalysis is heterogeneous catalysis. Here, the reaction mixture and the catalyst are in different phases. Look at this example. Nitrogen gas reacts with hydrogen gas in the presence of iron solid. So here, in the reaction mixture, the reactants and the products are in gaseous state, but the catalyst is in the solid state. So they are in different phases. So we call this catalysis as heterogeneous catalysis. Hetero means different, homo means same. Look at this example. 2SO2 plus O2 gas in the presence of platinum gives you 2SO3 gas. Here the reaction mixture is in the gaseous phase and the catalyst is in the solid state. And this example, when you take vegetable oil, we call this as hydrogenation of vegetable oil, and in the presence of nickel solid, you get solid fat, which is nothing but vanaspati. So this is in liquid phase, this in gaseous phase, and the catalyst is in solid phase and the product is in solid phase. So the reaction mixture and the catalyst are in different phases, and we call this catalysis as heterogeneous catalysis. So to explain the homogeneous catalysis and heterogeneous catalysis, we have a theory. This theory explains you the mechanism in the homogeneous catalysis and the heterogeneous catalysis. Now let's see one by one. So the first theory is theory of homogeneous catalysis. When we say theory of homogeneous catalysis, this theory explains what happens in a reaction where we use a catalyst, and that reaction is a homogeneous catalysis. For example, you take sulfur dioxide, treating it with oxygen in the presence of NO gas to give 2SO3. So this is a catalysis, and the type is homogeneous catalysis because all the reaction mixture and the catalyst are in the same phase. Now, how these two are reacting in the presence of this catalyst to give you this product? What are the steps followed? And that is explained by the theory of homogeneous catalysis. To explain homogeneous catalysis, the theory which we use is called as intermediate compound formation theory, because for explaining the heterogeneous catalysis we have a different theory. So this theory, which is called intermediate compound formation theory, explains homogeneous catalysis. So according to this theory, what happens is, first the reactant, we have two reactants. The reactant A reacts with the catalyst to give you an intermediate compound. And in the second step, the reactant B, which is the other reactant, reacts with the intermediate compound to give you the product, and the catalyst is recovered. The intermediate compound, being unstable, decomposes when it reacts with reactant B to give you the product and the catalyst. So this theory is called as intermediate compound formation theory. So we will apply this theory by taking an example. So here, this is the reaction where sulfur dioxide and oxygen are the reactants, and NO gas is the catalyst. So in the first step, reactant A, any one reactant reacts with the catalyst. So here oxygen, which is the reactant, reacts with the catalyst to give you 2NO2 gas. This is the intermediate compound. So in the next step, this intermediate compound reacts with the other reactant, which is sulfur dioxide. So SO2 gas, which is the another reactant, reacts with NO2 gas, which is the intermediate compound, to give you the product, which is SO3 gas plus NO, which is the catalyst. So the catalyst which was added here comes out in the final step. So this theory explains the homogeneous catalysis mechanism. So what is the first step? One of the reactants reacts with the catalyst to give you the intermediate compound. This being unstable reacts with reactant B, which is the other reactant, to give you the product and the catalyst. Now let's see what is the theory to explain heterogeneous catalysis. Now the theory of heterogeneous catalysis. So what is heterogeneous catalysis? The reaction mixture and the catalyst will be in different phase. Then how the catalyst helps the reaction to speed up. So according to this adsorption theory, we call this theory as adsorption theory, which explains heterogeneous catalysis. What was the theory which explained the homogeneous catalysis? It was intermediate compound formation theory. And this adsorption theory explains heterogeneous catalysis. According to this theory, the reactant molecules, here A and B are the reactant molecules, which are mostly gaseous in nature, approach the surface of the catalyst. This is the catalyst surface. These reactant molecules approach the surface of the catalyst. The bond present in them cleave and they are adsorbed on the surface of the catalyst. When we say the bond is cleaved, there is bonding between the molecules of A and with another molecule of A. Same way, bonding between a molecule of B and another molecule of B. That bond is cleaved and they get adsorbed on the catalyst surface. Now look this. This is the catalyst surface, and on the surface the reactant A is getting adsorbed and reactant B is getting adsorbed. So what is happening? Adsorption of reactant molecules on the catalyst is happening. And you know, adsorption process is exothermic. So this exothermic reaction gives out heat energy, which helps in increasing the chemical activity on the catalyst surface. So what happens on the catalyst surface? The adsorbed species, what are adsorbed here? A and B, the reactant molecules are the adsorbed species. They mutually combine to form an activated complex. Now see, this A and B combine to form an intermediate which is called as an activated complex. So the next step is formation of activated complex. This activated complex finally releases the product from the surface of the catalyst so that new reactant molecules may be accommodated on the surface. So in the last step, desorption of product molecule. So this is the product, and this product molecule is getting desorbed from the catalyst surface, and now this catalyst is brand new and it is available for the newly coming reactant molecules, and this process continues. So the mechanism of the heterogeneous catalysis are explained by adsorption theory, and it involves 5 steps. The first step is diffusion of the reactant molecules on the surface of the catalyst. So the first step is the reactant molecules will diffuse and come to the surface of the catalyst. And the second step, there is some association between the catalyst surface and the reactants, that is adsorption. So adsorption of the reactant molecules on the catalyst surface, that is the second step. Third step, occurrence of the chemical reactions on the catalyst surface to form the activated complex. So in the third step, there is some chemical reaction taking place, and what is formed? Activated complex is formed. And the fourth step, dissociation of the products from the catalyst surface. So from the catalyst surface, the product molecules are being dissociated. We call this process as desorption. And the fifth step, diffusion of the products from the catalyst surface, which means when we started, the reactant molecules, they diffused towards the catalyst surface, and at the end the product molecules will diffuse away from the catalyst surface so that this catalyst will be available for the other new reactant molecules. So actually what is happening, the surface of the catalyst is a seat for a chemical reactions. The free valencies on the surface of the catalyst are responsible for the chemical activity. When you take this catalyst in a finely divided form, then this chemical activity will be enhanced. Here we are talking about solid catalyst. There are 2 important features of solid catalyst. The 2 important features associated with the solid catalyst are activity and selectivity. So the important features of solid catalysts are activity and selectivity. When we say activity, it is the ability of the catalyst to accelerate the chemical reaction. Activity is the ability of the catalyst to accelerate the chemical reaction. So the reactants must get adsorbed strongly on the surface of catalyst to become active. So we have seen in the adsorption theory, the reactant molecules get adsorbed on the surface of the catalyst. So then only the chemical reaction takes place. So the reactant molecules must get adsorbed reasonably strong on the surface of the catalyst to become active. However, they must not be adsorbed so strongly that they become immobile. They should be able to move. They should not get adsorbed so strongly that they cannot move. The other reactants will not get an opportunity to get adsorbed on the catalyst surface if the already adsorbed reactant molecules are strongly fixed on the catalyst surface. So the solid catalyst has this feature of having the ability to catalyze the chemical reaction by accelerating it. Generally, the transition metals, which are D-block metals, they act as heterogeneous catalysts. For hydrogenation reactions, which means adding of hydrogen, in which we have seen an example of vegetable oil being treated with hydrogen in the presence of nickel to give vanaspati, and that is an example of hydrogenation reaction. For hydrogenation reactions, usually catalysts are from groups 5 to group 11, and the catalytic activity increases from group 5 to group 11, and maximum catalytic activity is shown by the metals belonging to groups 7, 8 and 9. And the second important feature of solid catalyst is selectivity. The action of a catalyst is quite selective, which means a particular catalyst may catalyze a specific reaction. Moreover, the nature of the product depends upon the nature of the catalyst. You can see these examples. The reactant are the same in all the three reactions. Carbon monoxide with hydrogen, again carbon monoxide with hydrogen, carbon monoxide with hydrogen. Now look at the products. In the first case it is methane plus water, second case it is methanol, and in the third case it is formaldehyde. So what decides on these products? The catalyst that we use. Here when we use nickel, you are getting these products. When you are using copper, zinc oxide and chromic oxide, you are getting methanol, and in the presence of copper you are getting formaldehyde. This feature of a catalyst to catalyze a specific reaction, which means a particular catalyst can catalyze a particular reaction, is called as the selectivity of a catalyst. So these two features are the important features of solid catalysts, which are activity and selectivity. As we are talking about catalysis, which means the chemical processes in which catalysts are used, a very important type of catalysis is enzyme catalysis, because enzymes play a very important role in catalyzing biological reactions. Before moving on to enzyme catalysis, let's see what are enzymes. Enzymes are complex nitrogenous compounds. They are produced by living plants and animals. They are proteins produced by living systems. They can catalyze certain biological reactions, and so they are also known as biochemical catalysts. Without the enzymes, the living processes would be too slow to sustain life. For example, a single molecule of carbonic anhydrase, which is the enzyme which is in the red blood cells, can catalyze the decomposition of about 36 million molecules of carbonic acid in 1 minute. In just 1 minute. So without enzymes, living processes would be too slow. These are the examples of enzyme catalysis. So here sucrose is converted into glucose and fructose by the enzyme invertase, and maltose is converted into glucose by the enzyme maltase. To understand how important these enzymes are, I'll give you an information. There is an enzyme lysozyme which is present in the tears of our eyes, and this enzyme protects the surface of the eye from bacterial infection. Actually, this enzyme catalyzes the breakdown of the cell walls of certain bacteria. So in that way, once the cell wall of the bacteria is removed, the bacterial cell breaks, so your eye is prevented from the bacterial infection. You would have generally heard old people complaining about the dryness in the eye, and that leading to some sort of infection. It is because the enzyme lysozyme is no longer present in the eyes of these old people, and that leads to eye infections. So enzymes play a very major role in the biological processes. Now let's move on to the mechanism of enzyme catalysis. The substances which are catalyzed are called as substrate, which are nothing but the reactant molecules. When you take an enzyme, on the surface of the enzyme molecules, there are a number of active centers which contain active groups like NH2, COOH, OH, etc. And these functional groups are active sites on the surface of the enzyme. These active sites have specific shape. For example, let's take this as an enzyme, and this enzyme's active sites, they have specific shape. The molecules of the reactant, which is the substrate, it has complementary shape, which means that fits into the enzymes. This enzyme can perfectly fit into these cavities on the substrate, just like a key fits into a lock. So in the first step, binding of enzyme to substrate to form a complex. So now this enzyme is fitting into the substrate to form this activated complex, which is represented as ES. So E is the enzyme, S is the substrate, E plus S giving you ES. And in the second step, what happens? This activated complex breaks down to give the product and releases the enzyme. Now see, this is breaking down and you're getting the enzyme and the products are released. An enzyme is again coming out. And that is represented as ES giving you E plus P. E is the enzyme, P is the product. As I told you, this enzyme catalysis is comparable to lock and key arrangement. Just like a key can fit into a particular lock only, same way an enzyme can fit into the active site of a particular substrate only. This explains why enzymes are very specific in catalyzing a particular reaction. Now let's see what are the characteristics of enzyme catalysis. Just like other catalysts, enzymes are highly specific as well as selective in nature. This means that a particular enzyme can catalyze a specific reaction only. And the second characteristic is efficiency. Enzymes are highly efficient and they speed up the biological reactions considerably. As I told you in the beginning, one molecule of the enzyme can catalyze the decomposition of about 36 million molecules. So enzymes are highly efficient. Optimum temperature. Enzymes normally work at certain optimum temperature that lies in the range of 298 to 300 Kelvin, 310 Kelvin, which is the optimum temperature range for the enzymes to be efficient. You would have seen enzymes are very effective in human body because the normal body temperature, which is 298 Kelvin, suits for this purpose. In case if one is suffering from high fever and when the body temperature increases, the enzyme activity is adversely affected, and this may lead to stomach pain, indigestion, etc. So for the enzyme to be efficient, the optimum temperature to be maintained is 298 to 310 Kelvin. Enzyme activators. Enzyme activators are certain substances which increase the enzyme activity. Just like we use promoters in the case of catalysts, these enzyme activators are substances which enhance the activity of an enzyme. They are also called as coenzymes. For example, metal ions like Na plus, Mn2 plus, CO2 plus and Cu2 plus can act as enzyme activators. Next one is enzyme inhibitors. Just like poisons, these enzyme inhibitors, they inhibit the enzyme activity. They are also called as poisons. Examples are Hg2 plus and Ag2 plus. Usually heavy metal ions, they act as inhibitors. And the last point is pH of the medium. Just like how you need an optimum temperature for the enzymes activity to be efficient, pH also plays an important role. The efficiency of enzyme is maximum under the pH range 5 to 7. You know, the pH of the blood also falls in this range and it is quite suitable for enzyme activity. So we have seen in detail about enzyme catalysis. We'll end up this video with one last type of catalysis called shape selective catalysis. The catalytic reaction, which depends upon the pore structure of the catalyst and the size of the reactant and product molecule, is known as shape selective catalysis. So the catalytic action depends upon the pore structure of the catalyst and also the structure of the size of the reactant and product molecules. Then we call that catalytic reaction as shape selective catalysis. One such example of such a catalyst is zeolites. Zeolites are aluminosilicates of metals, and they have this general formula. See, M is the metal, and that metal can be sodium, potassium or calcium. M X by N, AlO2 X times, SiO2 Y times, and Z H2O. Here this N is the charge on the metal cation and Z is the number of molecules of water present. These zeolites have a cage-like structure like this, and they are called as honeycomb-like structure, which have pores, which means small holes are present in these zeolites. And the size of these pores vary from 200 picometer to 740 picometer. And you should note one thing, only the reactant molecule of a particular size and shape can enter these pores. Not all the reactant molecules can fit into these pores, only the particular reactant molecules can fit into this pore. If the reactant molecules are of bigger size, they will not enter or get accommodated into these pores. In the case of small size, they will slip through the pores of the zeolites and they will not get trapped by them. So only those reactant molecules which can fit into these pores of the zeolites can be accommodated into this zeolite, and then the zeolite can catalyze the reaction. So this reaction depends upon the shape and the size of the pore and the reactant molecules. That's the reason we call this catalysis as shape selective catalysis. Actually, these water molecules will be present in the pores of these zeolites. So before starting the reaction, the zeolites are heated to remove the molecules of hydrogen, which means the water molecules. As a result, the pores will become vacant and the molecules of the reactants can be accommodated in them. Zeolites play a very important role as catalysts in the petrochemical industries to carry out the cracking of certain hydrocarbons. A very important example of zeolite is ZSM5, which catalyzes the conversion of alcohols directly into gasoline. And zeolites, they also play a very important role in removing the permanent hardness of water. So we have learned in detail about catalysts and catalysis. Thank you.